Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the I Am 1-2 podcast with your host, Christopher Cohn. With me, as always, is our good friend, my dear ally in this thing called sobriety, recovery, trying to help as many people out as we can. Dan, the man in the studio. Say hello to the peeps out there, Dan.
Hello, all you peeps out there. Welcome to the show. Welcome back.
Welcome back to you if you're coming back, and if you're here first time, you're going to enjoy this topic today. Today we're going to talk about higher power is found through demonstration. And nobody ever told me that growing up. They told me a lot of dogma, and I shouldn't do this, and these and thous, and all that jazz. It didn't really help me in life. But this one will help you in your direct contact with your own personal higher power. I can promise you that by the end of this episode. So hold me to it. All right, welcome. If you're just joining us for the first time, this is an all things recovery podcast, meaning that we are promoting everybody's growth to get to that better place in life, right? Now, if you're a person out there that's sitting there going, I'm exactly where I want to be, and I don't want to change anything in my life, my hat's off to you, and you've reached nirvana, and you're probably ready to die. But there's always stuff to work on, and there's always better and more available if you're willing to sacrifice and put the work into it. And we in recovery have found that these 12 steps, which were designed for everybody to use, I believe this with all my heart, that higher power brought this to the world to save us, can reprogram and flush out all those toxins and all those demons and all that trauma and programming that you've received your entire lifetime and bring you to a place where you can have more agency over your life. You can actually be the one that's got the rudder on its boat deciding where you're going rather than life dragging you around here and there. I was actually listening to a Buddhist monk I played in my therapy group this morning. I'm a licensed clinical alcohol and drug counselor, and he was saying that everybody is wounded. He said, you look at all the different wounds out there and people don't realize because they've buried so much of it in their subconscious, but we have jealousy wounds. We have direct trauma wounds. We have wounds of people leaving us. We have grief wounds. We have money wounds when we grew up in poverty. We have stress wounds and anxiety. He just went all of this list, and I'm like, yeah, and yet we all walk around, you say, how you doing? Everybody's like, I'm fine. No, really, I'm good. Everything's okay. So, welcome. If you want something better, stay with us. We will help you get that. All right, so today let's talk about this process of demonstration to get to prove to yourself and experience a deep connection with a higher power that is there for us that I did not believe in. When I came into this program, I almost threw up in my mouth every time they would mention the big G word. That's God, for those of you not privy to the recovery language. And I had a lot of baggage. I had a lot of hurts. I had a lot of wounds from my religious upbringing. And it took me a long time to get to where I am today, which is the recovery approach to this whole deal on spirituality is you get to choose your own brand. You get to choose what works for you. And that's unique in the history of mankind. Man has been fighting over who is God and do you guys have the right God, and you don't, we're going to just obliterate you. And we're still doing that today. We just bombed the Middle East. Disagreements on how to approach life, right? But instead in recovery, we celebrate that everybody has their own conceptions. But still, I had so much baggage in the way I couldn't get it. Now, my approach to recovery is the same way that I've approached life. Don't give me a tool if it doesn't work, okay? So I'll hear people talk about chakras and this and that. And if that inspires you and it helps you to live a better life, God bless you. It really doesn't turn Christopher into a better person to know this something sock chakra from his something chakra. Doesn't really help me today. But what I want is a screwdriver. I want a hammer. I want a tool that works. In other words, I'm a very pragmatic approach to my spirituality. The rest of that shit, it's inspiring, and I can get as floofy as the next guy and get all misty-eyed and blissed out because I'm feeling it. But then the next day, I'm back to cursing at the guy in traffic. How did that help me, right? So I want pragmatic tools and almost a scientific approach to recovery. So I was very relieved when my sponsor pointed out in the Alcoholics Anonymous big book, Bill Wilson writes, God gave us brains to use. How often is that disregarded at meetings with old-timers saying, everything I need to know is in this book, and you don't need to be thinking so much, and blah, blah, blah. Well, that's not a good approach to finding your own spirituality. I can't accept your spirituality. I have to find my own. So I went on this scientific approach. Let me try these tools, see if they work. And if they work, great. I'll use them. I'll keep using them. If they don't work, shut up. So I've applied that approach to my search for a higher power. And I am now sitting at 41 years of recovery. as well as being professionally in the field for 23 years. And I am like at a point where or actually it's 26. It's longer than that. I don't know. I've lost count. But I'm in a place where I've got some feedback on what I've learned over the years, trying to discern from a scientific, pragmatic approach, is this higher power even there? Again, we try to call it God. We dress it up in different dogma and religions and theology, but ultimately, I've got to know that something's there for me, and I got to believe it's going to work when I'm trying to work with it to get it to work with me. All right. So, what did I have to do that? Well, at first, I needed to bring an open mind to the tools. I wanted to judge this screwdriver and say, well, that's stupid. It's not going to work, because that's what every addict or alcoholic does when they first enter the program. And you may do that with this very podcast. You might be saying, well, this guy's out of his skull, doesn't know what he's talking about. But unless you pick up and try the pen, you cannot say the pen does not work. So my sponsor encouraged me, let's give these tools a fair try for long enough, not just once, with an open-minded approach, and then you get to decide, did you see positive results in your life from using that tool, or did nothing happen, or did your life get worse? Those are the three options, and that's the way to go when you're first starting out, is just be open to trying the tools. So like I said, since then I've taken this lifelong study on this to see what materializes, not only for me, in using these approaches towards a higher power, but what I see happening in the lives of my sponsees and my patients. And if I were to try to add up the thousands of people I've encountered in recovery over 41 years, both on, whether it's a recovery tape or I've lived all over the country and I've gone to all kinds of different meetings and conventions. I mean, we're talking lots of people. I'd hesitate to be able to put a number on it. And they all report the same results. If I'm using these tools, this thing tends to show up, and my life gets better. Things go easier for me. So that's what I'm going to discuss with you today, is my own direct observations and experiences. So here we go. I have 6 of them. Number 1, there is a power that exists, and it is available to assist us in a positive way as we go through life. Now, I find people, as I got caught up in, both in my religion when I was being brought up, but also as I went down a rabbit hole of New Age spirituality and all that, we work too hard to define this. And we do not have the human capacity to even begin to comprehend this power, right? So we get so caught up in what is it, and what do we call it? And we're not focused enough on, am I trying it? Am I working with it to build a better connection to see if it even shows up and works for me? So what I found when I started using the tools and just doing it, I was like, oh, there's actually a power that's there that I can't explain. It seems like a power greater than mine just by the fact I can't explain it, but it does things for me that I can't do for myself. So that makes it a greater power by definition. And every time I work with it, there's a positive that comes out of it, not a negative. Like, I'm not going to jail as the result of working this power. I'm not losing my family as a result of working with this power. When I work with the power of alcohol and drugs, and I use that power to try and connect with, I lose my family. I end up going to jail, all that stuff. So that's number 1. There is a power that exists. I've definitely observed it. I've felt it. I've experienced it. I've tested it, and I'm a tester. I will curse my God out. I will freaking say, where's the result? I'm that guy. And my higher power is bigger than that. He can handle it. But it still shows up. It doesn't matter if I judge it. Like, I could hate it. And as long as I'm in connection with it, it tends to work. It seems to be benevolent towards us. It's not really critical or judgmental, as I was taught in some of my teachings growing up. Number 2, this power is way too incomprehensible for human intelligence to define, and it doesn't really matter what you call it. Now, I heard my friend Dan say the other night, and I thought it was very applicable to this topic today. He said, I just interviewed somebody from my podcast, and they're doing something really different, and it's way out there, but you know what? It tends to be working for them. So it seems like all these different people are doing all these different modalities, yet they all work. Did you not say that to me?
I did say that.
And to you, what did that mean as you observed that?
Yeah, well, I mean, it looks like it doesn't make any difference what we call it or what we do, long as we do it. It seems to work no matter what.
So isn't that funny? If I make this observation that says it doesn't matter what we personally call it, it still is there. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do.
And I've seen so many people have all kinds of different approaches, but are you picking up the tool and actually using it? The problem I run into in my group is most of my patients are coming in and saying, well, I believe in God. I believe. And I'm like, belief ain't it. We're talking about using it. Are you having a relationship with it? Are you connected to it? So we'll get into that a little bit later. So that's number 2. Stop trying to figure out what it is and what to call it, because that just leads to war from us calling it different things. It exists for everybody. It exists for the guy in the Middle East, same way it does for the guy here in Louisville, Kentucky. But we don't believe that, right? Because of our personal differences. They're wrong. Number 3, this power does not judge us. And that was a big learning curve for me. I looked hard for the mean, judgmental, wrathful God when I came into recovery. I mean, I looked. I would share stuff at meetings. I would share stuff personally, very deep, bad secrets I shouldn't have been doing with my sponsor. And I did not get judged. I did not get hate. I did not get beat up. I did not go to hell. I did not get struck by lightning. Everything they promised me in the Old Testament did not happen to me. So where the hell is that shit? And there are still people out there on TikTok and YouTube that I will occasionally get in my feed that are just saying awful things about what God's going to do to you with hellfire and brimstone. I did not receive that when I finally started looking for God. I received nothing but love and acceptance, okay? And I don't know. There's this thing we feel like we should be punished when we're bad, and that it's not valid if we're not going through enough suffering. We had one of our friends recently relapse, and people wigged out because I don't think he looks contrite enough. I don't think he's suffering enough and needs to be punished more, almost. They didn't say that, but that's what they kind of meant. So, again, this power does not judge us. However, when we're not doing the right things in life, it can definitely feel, not saying it is, but I say it feels like it's turned its back on us, right? Everyone out there who's done some wrong things, especially addicts and alcoholics, you know when you go down that path and you're doing things that you know you don't agree with and you know probably going to hurt others, it does seem like it doesn't exist. It seems like there's no such God. And you can talk to a drunk in the gutter right now. He would agree totally with that statement. There's no such thing as a God. Look at my life. Look at the way things are. But he's turned away from it. It didn't turn away from us. It's not judging us. It's our perception. Okay. And it's not to say that this power does not show up in emergency situations when it's really needed. There's a very odd line in the AA Big Book when Bill says, God seems to be there when we want him bad enough. And I was talking in my aftercare group today. I don't know if that has something to do with our free will. And our free will is so intricately wired into our being that we're allowed to do whatever we want, even if that means destroying ourselves. That the power has to be really reluctant to interfere unless we're asking it to interfere. But it does seem like in emergency situations, even when we're doing bad things, sometimes that power will intervene. And that's what I mean by it does seem like it's friendly. And I'm going to get to that in a second. But for instance, I'll be in my group and some guy's talking about, I was out drunk and I probably shouldn't have been driving and I hit a couple of cars. I didn't hurt anybody. But, they should have gotten me. And the cop was right there. And the cop looked at me and I looked at him. And then the cop went the other way. And he's like, well, why did that happen? Why did you get a break? And I've seen people, even people who have destroyed their livers, right? And they're out there drinking. They shouldn't be doing it in the first place. Then all of a sudden they get something good happen where their liver gets better or they get some sort of medical care. And again, it can show up in emergency situations. So it does seem to have a mind of its own sometimes, but mostly it doesn't interfere with our life, okay? I will say that it does seem to be more open to helping us when we're doing good things, which is going to be a theme of this whole deal. All right, this power does not seek us. We have to seek it. Now that can feel callous. That can feel like God isn't there, right? Like we want him, good morning, Dan, how you doing today? What would you like me to do for you? Like a butler or something. And no, it doesn't work like that. We have to actively work at seeking him. We have a good friend of ours, Mr. Scott L., who is going to be here with us, hopefully, in the very near future. And he says, my God is a gentleman. He does not go where he is not asked. And I think that's a big piece that a lot of people miss. I'll get people in my group that say, I said my prayers. I said, well, what kind of prayers do you say? Well, I just kind of say my prayers. Or they recited a prayer they had memorized. I said, well, you're not asking God specifically what you want. So how does the universe even know? We can't read your chaotic mortal mind. You have to be very specific with your prayers. And you have to make your demonstration and seek it. And then that tends to elicit the response faster and stronger, in my experience. So again, it doesn't seek us. We have to seek it. All right, and most importantly, the most effective, which is the topic of today's podcast, the quickest and most effective way to get your higher power to show up in your life is through demonstration. Now, I looked up that fancy word because one of our friends was joking earlier, I got to learn a new big word. It's not that big a word. But interestingly enough, demonstration has many different meanings, right? Because there's demonstrate, go down, protest, and all that. But the definition that fits here, it says an outward expression or display. Now, if I'm praying to myself, is that an outward expression? Or if I'm actually speaking the words, which I was taught by my spiritual teachers, is that more effective to the universe? Because I'm making a display. I'm putting an outward expression. I'm going to a church. That's an outward expression. I'm showing up at my meetings. I'm calling my sponsor. All these things are displays, and they're outward expressions. And what I've seen is that for the people who do that, no matter how young you are in recovery, you can do this on your first day, higher power shows up fast and more effectively. It just does. It's like, boom, here I am. I'll get more into that in a second. Now, there was a second definition that I thought was a little bit more brain teasing. So those of y'all that like to brainiac out, here's this way. It says the art of showing someone how to do something or how something works. Now, I get that. They're basically saying, okay, I'm going to demonstrate a product. Well, this is how this product works. The lid goes like that. That's a demonstration. But I like what it says here, the art. That's the key word that caught me, of showing someone how to do something or how something works. So in other words, when I'm doing this for the newcomer in my life, and he's watching me get good shit out of doing this, I'm actually demonstrating to him the way this dynamic or this principle, or if you want to call it a spiritual law, I'm okay with that. We really don't know what it is, but I'm telling you, 41 years of experience, this is what I've seen. I've got to demonstrate, take action, get out of my head, get into motion. And there is that old physics thing about a body at rest tends to stay at rest, but a body in motion, it's easier to keep in motion. Well, that's what we try to teach our newcomers, okay? Now, it's really interesting, but this process of demonstration is very deeply laid throughout the 12-step program. And I didn't understand any of that until I worked with my best sponsor back in 2001, 2000. And Dr. Burns Brady, no longer with us, God rest his soul. He left a big footprint on Louisville, Kentucky, and he's a great teacher for me to aspire to be. But he told me about the entire 12 steps is preparation, demonstration, preparation, demonstration. He said steps 1 and 2, you're going over these things with your sponsor. And then step 3, they tell you to think a long time before you make this decision that you're willing to do the work, which is all step 3 really is. They talk about higher power, turning it over and all that, but it's way too tall a task for the average human being. We're just talking about let go, give me the steering wheel, and let's go through the steps. Are you willing to do that? But we want you to prepare to make that decision, and then we go and do a 3rd step prayer. That's a demonstration. Step 4, you're sitting there writing your journal. You're doing your inventory. That is solitary work, but it's also demonstration because you're getting words down the page. But then we go and we meet with our sponsor and we ask higher power to join us in step 5, and we're making a demonstration right before God. And every time I've done this, I've actually heard the words in my head, okay, God, I'm here. I may not even believe this works. I think this is a bunch of bullshit. But you told me and they tell me I'm supposed to do this, so I'm doing it. So I want you to do your part. You hear me? I'm here. I'm doing it. Look at me. I'm sitting in a meeting. I'm here. I've literally heard those words in my brain, especially when I was in the early recovery. I've got to do the work. And then guess what? 6 and 7, another demonstration. Ask my higher power to take it away and do the prayers and go off and do that work by myself. And of course, 8, coming to the process of forgiveness, a lot of interior work. But step 9, making amends, that's a huge demonstration. And then I think people overlook also the demonstration fact of step 12. And this is something Dan, I think, can verify right now for me. When we see people sponsoring people, their lives excel and take off and become better at a pace from helping other people that they weren't like before, and you can see a difference visibly in other members. Do you agree with that, Dan?
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. But we miss that, like, okay, well, I'm healed now, so I need to do his maintenance work. It's like, no, step 12 is a demonstration step.
Yeah.
Are you demonstrating that you're grateful for your recovery because you're turning around helping the next guy?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's the old can't keep it if you don't give it away kind of concept that we talk about around here. And, and when you've done this for a little bit, I mean, the fire that comes into a man when he begins to, like you just hear the juice in their voice when they call you because they met with their guy today or they talk to their guy today, and there's just a higher frequency in their being just simply from performing that act.
It's astounding. And again, it's a lost art in America because we're all about materialism and thinking he who dies with the most toys wins, when it's the exact opposite. It's he who helps the most people and gives the most away gets to be the winner inside. So my sponsor teaching me about this whole process of demonstration through the steps. It's just a really revolutionary idea. And I try to coach my guys on that because it's that simple. Are you willing to suit up and show up? That is a phrase I've always admired since the beginning of my recovery journey. And I was like, I'd be at home. It'd be going on 8 o'clock. And I needed to walk my butt. It took about 20 minutes, half hour to get to the place because I had no car in early recovery. And the weather could be fucked up because it was Minneapolis. And I'd be like, I don't want to go. I just want to sit here and be miserable. And then my brain would go, fuck that. Suit up and show up. That's how you get well. And I followed that. Just by putting my butt in that seat, and I did 90 and 90 and another 90 and 90. I don't tell you that to applaud myself. I tell you that because that was my demonstration. And you see the guys that will buckle in and go to a lot of meetings and really do get crazy busy with the work, their lives get better faster at a dramatic rate. Do they not, Dan?
Yep, they sure do.
This is something that's even crazier than you would think it should be. Okay, for instance, if I'm an old timer and I'm kind of using the higher bar and kind of not, and I'm getting kind of so-so results in my life, and then a newcomer comes in and he doesn't deserve a higher bar because he's been doing nothing but running, gunning, stealing, hurting everybody, and putting his mom in an early grave. That's all he's been doing. Yet, he turns that corner, gets on board, and says, all right, sponsor, I'm in. I'll do anything you tell me to do. You tell me to go to a meeting every night? I'll call you every day. Do it. And he's doing it. All these miracles start showing up in his life, like he gets his job back. His wife invites him back into big bed again. His kids love him again. And he doesn't deserve these things. I remember one of our members recently talked about his kids coming back, and I was like, CPS probably shouldn't have given them back to you that fast. I thought that in my head. But that's how fast it works. Mm-hmm. So when I say this thing doesn't judge you, it doesn't. But are you using it? Any thoughts on that?
Oh, I've learned a big lesson about that judging you thing, and it's fantastic. And I thought you were going to go down the crusty old timer thing where people kind of get a little bit, you'll see some people kind of get, and I will find myself also, honestly, I can say it, that I will see myself being a little jealous of that hot, on fire newcomer who is just doing the deal. But I also witness, and I know that's this process working. Once again, Dan, pay attention and watch. Take note. Other newcomers, and I found out that I'm not being judged, man. I just come out of that relapse, man, and it was, if I kept on doing my demonstration, I was able to get well pretty damn fast off of it.
And it's funny,
you don't deserve it, so to speak.
In the newcomers' eyes too, you kind of see them as they're sharing in the meeting. Like one of our friends was sharing that he had so many AWOLs at work, he didn't know if he was going to be fired. And he finally got the nerve up to ask his ESSP, what's my status? And he says, you don't have any AWOLs. And he's been doing hella work. He's got a great sponsor. He's doing the deal. And you could see, though, when they have that moment, even as they're sharing it, they're like, I know I don't deserve that. And I can't even explain why that happened. But I guess maybe because that power is there, that is what builds faith, and that is what will teach you this shit is real. No other person can tell you that. No book can convince you of that. I can read this big book or a Bible all day long and still be a doubting Thomas because I haven't experienced it. And this is the biggest mistake I find most people make with spirituality. It's not a head game. It's an experiential process. You've got to experience it for yourself. I could tell you all day long what higher power is doing in Dan's life and my friend Mark's life and my life, and you're going to be sitting there going, yeah, good for you. Mm-hmm. Not there for me. But then when it happens to my new guy, and he's got, like you said, and you can't wait to tell me everything that's happening, I'm like, okay, now you're getting this. All right, now this is the final, sixth, and most important observation I've made about this power that I am convinced is here to help us save us from ourselves. We're not alone, guys. My old spiritual teacher used to say all the time, do you think God would desert us? And that there were only prophets in the old days? There's prophets all over. People just aren't listening. So this power is friendly to us doing well in life. It is friendly to you having a better job. It is friendly to you having better relationships, to being in better health. If and only if it is conditional. It's free. It's not judgmental. But if you want it to really work most efficiently and quickly, we have to be doing the next right thing. If I'm not, or if I'm conscious, like if I'm not unconscious making a mistake, again, no judgment. You get forgiven, move on. I've seen people forgiven for amazing things. But if I'm consciously saying, I know I shouldn't do this, but I'm doing it anyway, and then you want to cry about the consequences, I can't help you. That's just the way the laws are set up. I don't know if they're laws of karma or what, but you get what you get. So if you're doing the next right thing and you demonstrate that willingness and humility to invite that power into your life, the sky's the limit as far as I've seen it. I know a lot of New Age teachers running around about you manifest what you think and you can project out, that's all well and good. But I don't think it's giving credit to the source. My teacher taught me it's always the source. If you've got a projector, the light bulb's God. You don't have any power on your own. The light bulb is the thing that comes through. But what are you putting out there, and are you making some effort? That's all it is. Just a little bit of simple effort. Now, in my early recovery, once I got wind of this, I sort of joined into a partnership with my higher power. And I advise all new people out there to try this because it's worked out well for me for 4 decades. I can't even believe it myself. And I've gone through a lot of shit in those 4 decades. There is no cure for life. There is no cure for being human. But we do have the best way to navigate that crap in this 12-step program. But this partnership, I said, okay, God, look, I can't control whether I'm going to have a job, have the rent money, when I'm going to get a car. 3 years recovery, 3 Minnesota winters, huffing my ass, walking to meetings, asking for rides, having to practice that humility. And I said, I can do what I can do, but you're going to have to handle the rest. So I told him literally, I'll pick my butt up, suit up and show up, and I'll be my butt in the chair at the meeting at 8 o'clock. You take care of everything else. That was the deal I made. Shake. I actually remember doing something like that. And it was like this partnership where I'm going to let go and let him handle the rest. Now, Dan, back me up on this. Do you not find if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, and your sponsor and your support group and your higher power kind of in alignment with what you're doing, does your life not go better than it ever does in any other circumstance?
You always ask me the hardest questions, dang it. Yes, it's amazing. It is astounding how when you're just doing the right thing and how things will turn out. And you can it is fun to smile through life, to walk around the next corner and be in a position where you get into this optimistic thing where the power, that higher power is working to you, for you, with you. And you can expect things to work out and move through life with a smile on your face, kind of in anticipation of what's going to be the next cool thing.
All right, and this question will be easier because it's the exact opposite. If we're not doing the right thing and we're hell-bent on doing it our way, have you not found that you run into conflict and friction with the universe?
Absolutely. It's like, it's like, you said it, friction. It's like having sandpaper on you trying to move down a wall, man. It's just everything is dragging, everything is hurting. It just makes it difficult. It's the old swimming up.
Down a wall, that's good.
It's like, it's the old swimming upstream, man.
Sandpaper for toilet paper.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, have a roll of sandpaper on your toilet paper roll. See how that works out for you. Let's do it the hard way.
That those guys who are doing the right thing, they are kind of walking around a little light in their loafers, like they've got a paint up their ass, like just irritable, restless, discontent. I also wrote on here, you also keep running into dead ends and assholes. Mm-hmm. When you're off base, it's always everybody else is the asshole. I remember I was taught that in early recovery. They said, if you get up, go to work, and first person you run into seems like an ass, don't worry about it. Maybe they're having a bad day. Second person you run into is an ass. You sound like, well, again, it's weird, but don't worry about it. Third person you run into is an ass. You might want to look back and see if you have a tail, because you're the ass. And they meant asshole, but they were being nice back then. So again, working in concert and partnership with this power and always being willing to bend and adjust to both its nudges and its influences. What does that mean to you, Dan? Nudges and influences.
You have to be, dynamic with this. You have to kind of roll. It's the roll with the punches cliche. I have to be willing to kind of, take a step over and bend with my stuff and not be so rigid that it's going to be my way or the highway. That's the whole fixed, manage, and control thing we talk about, where I'm gonna force this. My life would be good if I just manage well. Mm-hmm.
And it's not going to call you and leave a voicemail. It doesn't communicate like that. You'll get nuanced nudges, and then if you don't pay attention, you'll get more fire behind it. It'll turn up the heat a little bit more, And am I willing to bend to that? And I mean that sincerely. I mentioned this again in group. I'll say this several times because it's one of my favorite things. But the Buddhist teachings about the reed in the river, if it bends, it survives the floods. The ones that are rigid get snapped and they die. So I've learned to wear life like a loose overcoat and to listen. Fucking listen. Clearly, there isn't a time that any addict or alcoholic didn't do something that was turned out horrible for them later, when they didn't have that little voice and going, you probably shouldn't be doing this. Right?
Yep. And that's my using career, Every time that I did something and stepped into a new substance or whatever, there was a little nudge on my shoulder going, Dan, you probably ought not be doing this. But I just overrode it and did it anyway. I want to do what I want to do.
So I want to be clear with people to wrap it up and then get your feedback in here. When I first came in, I had this worry, right? And I think most newcomers do, thinking, well, I'm not going to have fun anymore then if I have God in my life, right? And it's the exact opposite, right? Once you figure out what spirituality is, opposite what you were taught in religion, right? About sin and being a good whatever, it frees you up. It frees you up to be more you than you've ever been in your life, which means you're going to be more impulsive, more play, more open to new things, kind of like a child would be. And this power doesn't impose its influence on you, again, like a gentleman, unless you're asking. And when I ask, I'm assuming higher mind knows much better than I do because it's connected to everything and I'm only connected to my skull. So I'm going to allow that influence in and say, what do you think? And we're going to go back and forth and communicate. And I don't just do prayers in the morning. I actually don't in the morning. I just pray all day long. I talk to God all day long. And it's great. It's like my best friend in my co-pilot seat. And if I need somebody in physical representation, I pull old Dan. But otherwise, God's in the cockpit right behind me in the F-18, whatever. And I can count on him. I can count on him just like Maverick could count on Goose. But that has to be built. How does that get built?
Practice.
You've got practice. You got to be willing to try these tools over and over, and then you will see for yourself, oh, wow. And I remember, Dan, let's just open it up. When you were getting sober and you would be calling me saying, well, I just don't know how this happened. And I said, well, what are you talking about? And you would say, well, I was supposed to go to court, and I'll let you tell the story about the address and all that stuff, and somehow it's all fixed. And I said, well, you know what that is, don't you? And then you would say, what?
Usually I would try to explain what this intelligent, thought I was supposed to know, I would try to explain what I thought it was, but I did over time. I learned. I'm pretty smart. As the fog lifted, and I learned the correct response is no response. Why don't you tell me?
And I would say?
You would say it was higher power, man. I mean, it is. Take a look at it. I can't tell you how many instances. And again, I always talk. One of my favorite sayings of late is the evidence piles up so deep I can no longer deny it. And this stuff piled up deep in my early recovery where I couldn't. I get chills right now. Where I could not see anything. I could not put any explanation on it. Then this power that you were telling me about that I did not believe in nor knew how to access was working in my life.
Mm-hmm. And, being old in recovery, I go through phases where I get up in my head and get into that trying to define it. And, is God really there for us? Is he going to give a fuck when I die? Where am I going? But I've learned that in practical terms, like I said, pragmatic, it's just electricity. I'm just plugging in, and then I get that power and my light comes on, and I'm like, oh, wow, this really works. And it's just, if you want the best, easiest going, most fulfilling and satisfying existence on earth that's peaceful, get this higher power in your life. Now, again, God would sketch me out to call it that. That's why I was thinking about calling this podcast Find Higher Power God Through Demonstration. I was like, no, let's not scare people. Because that word is so heavy.
Yeah.
You can call it whatever you want to.
They see God on that screenshot on that thumbnail, man.
They're not watching that. Not while they're smoking some dope, that's for sure. So, what do you think? Any thoughts? I saw you scribbling a little bit over there. Any questions about this stuff?
I always keep a notepad here when I'm with you, and when I write down what the episode is, and I put the title down, and I keep some notes and kind of stuff. And I for a while would use one whole piece of paper for an episode, and I realized I wasn't filling it up. And today I almost run out of room.
Oh, that's great. I love that.
So much, man. This is such a cool topic, and again, and we just talked about it a minute ago, and I just think it's cool. You want to talk about like how higher power shows up in weird ways and stuff, and that kind of stuff is exactly how the topic of this podcast happened. I was editing one the other day, and me and Christopher had been having a conversation about what we wanted to do. You know, we discuss what topics we want and that kind of stuff. And he tells me what he's planning to do, and he threw one of them didn't know what to do kind of thing, and I'm editing a podcast, and then right in the middle of it, he starts talking about this topic about demonstration, and he says, we could do a whole, and you might have already seen it out there, listener, you might have already seen this episode and saw this happen, we could do a whole episode on that, and I didn't wait, because I knew, if I set that down, I'll forget about it in a minute, and so I just stopped what I was doing. Polo, Christopher said, hey man, here's what you said the other day, and that's what we're doing. I said, I love this topic. It really means a lot to me, from the beginning of you turning me on to Emmett Fox and Emmett Fox talking about demonstrating what you're doing, and it made a shift in my mind about, this kind of action thing and this, what am I supposed to be doing and doing the next right thing. And he spilled that out there to where I started, it helped me understand it. So much so that if you listen to the Spiritual Underground podcast the other day, I said, thank you for allowing me to demonstrate my recovery instead of participate in it, because I think that's almost as much importance as that. And, and it's not showboat demonstrating. It's making a demonstration to my higher power, because I do believe that when I wake up in the morning and the first thing I do is make contact, and when I meditate, and all the things I'm doing in my that the recovery life has taught me to do are all demonstrating it. And when I skip that, that's the opposite. That's showing it's not important to me. That's demonstrating. Still demonstrating. It's demonstrating that this particular thing is not important to me in my life, and I really don't believe it, and I really don't. And whatever that dynamic is about, you talk about plugging into that extension cord. We know this thing about, I'll paraphrase something in the big book. Inside every man, woman, and child is a fundamental idea of good and bad. We know when we're doing the wrong thing, and when we know when we're doing the wrong thing, or the right thing and the wrong thing. You know most of the time, and you certainly know when you're doing something you probably ought not be doing. And life gets rough with that, and that seems like that shorts out this extension cord. It won't allow it to plug in when I'm doing that little dance. And as you said, you don't have to be perfect. That's not the deal, man, and that's the whole thing behind the progress, not perfection, because in the beginning you can't possibly. This practice takes a while, and but it can happen quickly. You'll start getting results quickly, but the practice takes a while, and it's like that cord is like a faulty cord in the beginning that you're plugging in. It's got some cracks in the wires, and not all the braids are intact, and like over time as you do this, that connection gets tighter and tighter and tighter, where it's not sitting over there sparking out. I was just looking this thing about like finding God and having one. There's a misconception, and we've talked about it in other podcasts, that we have we got to drive a stake in the ground and say this is it. And I found that's not necessary either.
Well, as soon as you do, then it goes over here.
Yeah, right.
Well, this is it.
It's actually,
this is it.
Yeah, it's actually
whack-a-mole.
Works against you to like drive a stake in there, to pigeonhole God, to put him in a box, or her, or it, or whatever. And that's the other thing about these damn adjectives, and even trying to describe or even talk about it becomes difficult, because I don't personally think he, she, gender kind of stuff. I think of it more as an energetic field of the spiritual law, like you had said. I really like that. I heard somebody say that at some point. When you were talking about like that, the demonstration, and I heard it again last night. I had a gal on the Spiritual Underground podcast talking to her, and kind of just did a little quick thing. We're going to have a little longer thing. She brought to the point that, and she's not a substance abuser, but she's got the same kind of path, this thing. And of course, this podcast is for everybody too, so it's not. But she had that moment in time where she did what we kind of describe as the jailhouse prayer, the hospital prayer, the foxhole prayer, that moment when the bullets are flying over your head, or the car is screeching off the icy road, and said, I don't know what to do, throwed up her arms and just prayed for help to the universe, to something she didn't happen to understand, man. And like almost instantly, within days or, quick, something started happening. and some things just fell into her trail. And we see that happen all the time. And you talk about the time that you were come home from a meeting or something, was that, and that you ranted at God. You kind of challenged, and it was a moving point. It was like the whole thing's changed for you at that moment. And that's that time when it's a little bit like having the white flag up, going, okay, I'm done doing it my way. Help me.
I actually agree with that. That was my first contact, as they would use that term in science fiction. That was my first contact with higher power, was an old timer told me to go cuss him out, just to get that baggage out of the way. And otherwise I was not discussing, I was not in relationship with the power. And that's because, again, I was taught to formalize and these and thous, and this is the correct prayer to say, and that was blocking me from having a personal relationship with the higher power. I wanted to mention, though, you mentioned this the other night at the Tuesday night meeting, this demonstration thing. When I was working down at JDAC downtown, and it's rough, and you could not get a parking space close to the building, so I would park way in Hoodville, and I mean deserted Hoodville. This is Hoodville, like if somebody's going to jack you on the street, there's nobody else around. Okay, that's scary Hoodville. If there's other people around, you're like, okay, well, somebody's going to watch me be jacked. But and I would get off late at work and midnight walking down there, and my car would be the only thing. And it's not a beat up piece of crap like burned out vehicle. And I'm like, oh, it's just sitting there, take it from me, just beaming that. And I would pray and say, all right, God, I'm here to do your work because I'm working in this facility. You protect me. And as the big book says, God will safeguard and protect you when you're on an errand of mission of mercy to help one of our others. And you said that yesterday about Quentin. Mm-hmm. Do you want to tell that story?
Yeah, and early on, I was walking down, and I was going to a really seedy area in Louisville, and I was early in my recovery. I was new to sponsoring people, and I was going into a place that, I am not the normal dude you see walking down the street down there. And I was obviously worried about it, but I went and I went and I went, and I got propositioned by prostitutes. I got propositioned by drug addicts, just regular old panhandlers. I had some people come around that kind of did frighten me a little bit, and I just smiled and been nice and just kept on walking, and I never had a single issue down there really to matter. And it seemed like in the beginning, that there was a little bit of a challenge in the beginning, and it got easier. People started leaving me alone as I'm showing up or whatever.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was kind of neat that it and it could have been any number of things. It could have been that they.
But the
said,
story,
there's that dude.
The story I wanted to hear is when you got Quentin the first time.
Well, when he come out of the woods?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I thought you
and you didn't know what you were expecting.
I had no idea what to expect. I'd met this guy, but I really didn't know him, and he contacted me out of the blue, And I have this gift with names and faces and stuff, so I did recall the dude. But at this point, he was homeless, and he told me he was living off the interstate and off of I-65 out here in some woods and stuff. And I offered to pick him up, man. And he tells me to pull up by this big oak tree or some kind of deal, And I'm in this. I think this church was abandoned, but it was on whatever Tuesday night, so it may have just been nothing was going on. But it was like a ghost town behind this big old church, and there was these woods behind it. And I pull up and I sit, and you don't know if you're in the, are you in the right? All the crap that happens when you get to. Are you in the right place? Are you? And all of a sudden I could see some color start coming out of the woods down the ways, man, and here comes Quentin, and Quentin's a bigger fella, and here he comes, and I'll just say it, I don't think he minds, he don't care, you can say anything about waddling out of the woods and jumping in the car. And,
did he have overalls on?
And he had overalls on, absolutely, it was not,
it's Texas Chainsaw Massacre, dude, what are you talking about?
But you know what, just like we was talking about last night, the guy come walking out of the woods with a big old smile on his face, he was happy. He was keeping a positive attitude even through some of the roughest and hardest stuff a guy could go through. And that little story about him coming in there and saying he was camping. I've never been sober camping before.
Did you say that little prayer, though, at some point? Like, I don't know where I'm going, God. So
yeah.
You're going to have to watch over me here?
Yep,
so
absolutely.
There's the demonstration.
Yep. Yep, and I do, and you were talking about that, I think everybody talks to themselves, and there's some science out there, and I've listened to some stuff, and there is some percentage of
narrative. Yeah.
There is some little short percentage of people that don't have that going on, apparently, or they're lying about it.
They're unconscious.
But we talk to ourselves, and I reformulated my talking, because really they say going up in your own head is like going in a bad neighborhood by yourself, or whatever, and that stuff. And it didn't, I don't know if I heard it from a speaker tape. I've listened to so much recovery that I probably take some take some of my own, what do you say? Take a...
Your own take on it?
Yeah, it's like it's my take on it when I heard it from somebody else, but I've reformulated, and now all day long, all that self-talk is me talking to a higher self, a higher power or something. I don't know. I try not to put labels on it, but I've reformulated that. And everything I do today, help me with this project, help me with this podcast, even though we do say an outward prayer and make that demonstration before we start this thing, I've done it inside my own head on the way here, you know, and on the way to work, and get me through traffic, and help me get this door fixed on a handyman job, and help me when I go meet this guy and do a third step prayer, and help me da-da-da-da-da-da.
What you're doing, though, is you're building relationship with the power rather than just eliciting help when I'm in trouble. And, you know, my old spiritual teacher used to say all the time, if God is truly our parent figure, like our cosmic parent, and all the great teachers call it father, mother, whatever, and because that's what we relate to, it provides for our needs, it watches over us, blah, blah, blah. Well, if you had a child that you loved dearly, and that child went off to college, and you didn't hear from them for 3 or 4 months because they're having such a good time, and you're like going, oh, I hope they're all right, and I hope they're having a good time, and then that child finally calls you, and you run through the house to pick up the phone because you're like, oh my God, I get to talk to my kid, and you pick up the phone, and you listen, and the first thing they say is, our Father art in heaven, amen, goodbye, and they hang up, and they don't share anything that's going on in their life. Now, as a parent, how would you feel?
Yeah, right. No doubt.
Bullet to the heart, would it not?
Sure.
That's relationship. But I was so frightened by my teachings in my church. The relationship was, yeah, you get close to this thing, it's going to hurt you because you're a sinner. Horrible damage being done to people.
Yep. The ways, like this, sometimes we get the question about, like, how do you do this demonstration? You know, we hit on some of them here and there, and you know, when you ask for help, when you ask for somebody for help, that is a demonstration. When I call my sponsor on time, that's a demonstration. When I do my assignment, let's say I'm in 12 steps and I do my assignment that night, I'm making my demonstration. Well, like I've already said, when I awake, when I go to sleep, when I, and so you can, a little bit like, it doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be some really, get a little bit guarded on the word outward. And I heard you explain that too, that it doesn't necessarily have to be like shout from the mountaintop stuff. But it runs the gamut on, I think in the beginning, it's the small steps. It's the baby steps in the beginning to get it rolling.
We can get caught up in details. And again, I think I meant more in my head. I may never said it right. I think more that guy who would just do rote prayers because he's taught to do them, but they don't really have any meaning behind them. But I'm going to use a phrase that you love to use and let you build on this. Dan's big on the phrase, you got to have skin in the game. And each time you're investing by suiting up and showing up and doing your assignments, you're putting more skin in the game. And that does tend to make the higher power of the force show up more in your life. Would you agree with that?
Yep. I think it's a parallel thing of saying demonstration. I think it's the same thing. It's just getting skin in the game. It's putting my energy into the deal. I don't know why, but I'm thinking, I can sit here at home and hope that somebody will come by and change the oil of my vehicle. But, the thing is I got to drive over there and get parked in the spot. And then when I get myself, and I've taken action and made the demonstration and get myself in the spot, then the oil gets changed, and it's kind of the same way of positioning yourself in life so that the things that, and that for lack of a better way to say it, the things that you want, a decent life, a happy, reasonably satisfying, content, sane, serene existence can come to you. And again, it seems to always be better than any of those things I just said, at least for people who actually put skin in the game.
Yeah. And you can also see in those that are half invested.
Yep.
They'll come in and bitch and moan about how bad their life is going. And I'm like, well, dude, where you been? We haven't seen you for 3 weeks. Hell, you didn't even show up for your birthday.
Yeah.
What skin in the game do you have? And again, the reading this morning on the daily reading was about complacency. And they said even worse, smug complacency.
Oh, wow.
Like what it said was, well, I'm staying sober and that's good enough. I'm a good guy. I don't really need to work on anything else. And I was like, whoa, that's a good one. But we bringing all this up for you to just know, to have hope. Because God forbid, if we're deserted, like so many people out there feel with the horrors going on in our world and the things that are in motion that are, just very not inspiring. They're depressing. It's easy to lose hope. And I'm telling you, no, there is a power that's there to help you. and I'm using this finger, you, because don't worry about those other guys. They're going to get their karma. Don't worry about other stuff. But we get sucked in because of the power of media. So if this guy is in a position of authority and he says blah, blah, blah today, and I'm supposed to go, and then that ruins my whole day. No. You're not my damn higher power. I got this. And when I got this, I can go through anything that you're doing, and I come out unscathed. I come out smelling like a rose. I've seen this a million times. And those that get caught up, he said what? Or is it war? What are we doing? They get their life is wrecked. And again, it's that discipline. No, what is your real higher power? I'm not going to give you the power. And we had corporate come the other day, and everybody's wigging it. All the little mice are running around. The house is on fire. And it's like, they're just people. And my buddy Dan goes, well, you don't know what they did last night. They might have gotten in early and gotten a couple hookers and gone to the club and got totally drunk last night and passed out and were waking up late, and that's why they're late this morning, but because they're corporate, they have a tie on, but it's a game, folks. I love what you said today about when you go to look for a job and you want to be able to be honest. You want to say that? Yeah,
well, I heard it. Christopher and I have been in a rabbit hole listening to some guys, and this guy was talking about life being transactional, and he said, but we downplay it. We it's not okay to talk about it. And I said, could you imagine if you come, okay, Dan, I've showed up for my interview. I got my tie on. I'm sitting up straight. I got my little notebook and my pen and everything. And they say, okay, Dan, Mr. Reeves, whatever. Can you tell me why do you want to come to work here? Why do you want this job? And I said, well, to be honest with you, my old job ain't paying me shit, and I really need to be making some more money. I need to be making some money. My kids are going hungry. My wife wants them to go to private school. I need some more cash. You can't do that. You got to come in there and say, well, I'm looking for an environment that will allow me to practice my professional leadership skills in order to build more blah, 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 blah. And you come in there and you do this whole dance in a job interview when both sides knows that ain't the truth. Even the other side. Why do you want me to come work here? Well, actually, we got so much work we can't freaking do it, and we're trying our best to freaking fill these seats because corporate wants us to be doing more work than we possibly could ever do. So when you get here, prepare to sink or swim because we're going to bury you and work your ass off. You say, wait, well, if you will pay me enough to do that, well, then we can maybe make a deal.
So I'm hearing a podcast subject that we can get into in the future because these great teachers, man, and we'll just have to package up phrases in our own words. I don't want to steal somebody else's material. But this whole idea that we don't analyze the transaction as much from is it worth my time and what do I get out of it? We kind of fall into things like, I got to do it because it's family, or I need to do it because, if I don't, my wife's going to be mad at me or whatever. It's like, well, wait a minute. I'm going to do this for you. What are you doing for me there? And I especially like the guy we're listening to right now, the host, who said, yeah, it's interesting when you level up, you have less opportunities with your time. So you got to be more circumspect about, is this worth my time to even spend doing this? And people are going to think whatever they think. But if you're growing and you want better in your life, you can't worry about what the people left behind are thinking because they're choosing to be left behind. They could come with you. And instead, they're just throwing hate. They're throwing shade. And that almost guarantees that you'll stay stuck there. Another thing about this power is if you're living in resentment, if you're living with hate, if you're living with judgment, and there's a lot of that being slung around in the past month, you're not going to progress. That power is not going to show up for you. It doesn't. That's part of that doing the wrong thing because your heart's not in the right place. That's why so much a big part of the 12 steps is cleaning house. You got to get rid of those poisons, man. Any hatred about for anything or anybody, it's going to only hurt you.
Yep. That whole attitude, that's what we say, again, I always say, like, our 12-step recovery got as many cliches as anybody. And I know it's not all theirs. They probably pick some of them up, but it's been just celebrated 90 years of doing this. So some of them I know actually I'm pretty sure have come out of this. But the attitude of gratitude stuff, one of the other thing is that mopey attitude is not the demonstration my higher power wants to see me being. We talk about getting back to like a childhood joy. The book says we absolutely insist upon enjoying life. I need to, like Quentin demonstrates, this attitude of, okay, man, I'm good, and not that you got to be happy and that all the time. But the flip side of that is you can't be that moping dude all the time.
No.
And the bitching and moaning and crying and the victim mentality and all that. That's the opposite demonstration. You need to kind of like, it's like polishing up your antenna. If you're doing if you're leaning towards the gratitude stuff, your antenna's cleaned up, can receive some signal. If you've got it all crudted up with resentment or bad attitude or various other things, anger, victimhood, your antenna gets crusty and the signals can't get through.
That is a great point. And to tag on that, and we'll start wrapping it up, negativity, like the guy that's moping, right? He's just focusing on the negative. Even when I'm going through the worst, like I've got a medical challenge or I've got a bill challenge or I've got you'll know, I'll be poloing down going, I'll still be in the shower at night going, oh God, thank you for this hot water. I'm so grateful to have a hot shower. Most people in the world don't even have running water. Oh, my God, this is great. And those gratitudes, man, that dominates most of my life. I have a refrigerator that's on its last legs, but has been for the past 20 years. It doesn't die, and I'm going to let it go till it dies. I want to see how long we go here. And every time I open the door and it's still cold in there, I'm like, God bless it. My refrigerator works. Oh, my God. And how many people take that for granted when they're getting their milk out in the morning? This is just part of the recovery mindset. You practice it long enough, you live in it on a daily basis. Any last thoughts on the demonstration topic?
I could go on forever about it, man. It is a very cool thing, and we can knock it around. But yeah, it's important. It is. It's all these little trinkets of stuff. 60-something episodes here now of little, and not little, but to build upon and to implement into your life in order to get something better than what you got. Because we meet them every day. They're out there trying to figure out things are just not going that well for a lot of people, and they're stuck in something. Mm-hmm. And you deserve to be free of that something, and there's a path out, and this is one of them. There are many, but this is one, and this one works really, really good. I don't know one that works better than to practice these principles we're teaching here on the I Am 1-2 podcast.
And to wrap it up, I want to add one more that you just said. What you're feeding your head, what you're feeding your thoughts, what you're feeding yourself. And so many people are focused on the news or focused on gossip or social media. And the gift we have today of YouTube, at your disposal, billions and billions of inspirational, informative, revolutionary, life-changing information that you couldn't even access, our ancestors could never get to, and it's right at your fingertips, and very few of my patients are listening to AA speakers or taking advantage. And I told them today, I know that I'm growing, because on a daily basis, I'm listening to a new thing.
Yep, me too.
I'm like, oh, this sounds interesting. Quantum physics, what's this? Oh, this sounds interesting. What's this? And I love that.
Yep.
And when you and I go back and forth and share.
And at times, take that opportunity to listen to something you don't even know if you're going to like it or not. And then it turns out to be, I'm running into a lot of really cool dudes by taking a chance on listening. And if I don't like it, I'll change. That's the thing. We can cultivate that ourselves today. We're not stuck with the 3 TV stations that they send through there anymore. You can actually go out and feed your spirit whatever you choose to feed it.
And that brings higher power more when you're in a positive way of thinking and you're actually seeking.
When you're seeking. Yeah. It's another demonstration.
Good job.
You're out seeking.
So if you have any further questions about that, we would love to hear from you. We have an email. It is the I Am 1-2, those 4 digits over my left shoulder, or my right if you're looking at the screen. And it's IAM12recovery at gmail.com. That's IAM12recovery, no period in between, at gmail.com. Drop us a line. Let us know what you think. Make a comment below. If you find this would be helpful for someone else, please send it on. I do believe we have one question for today, so Dan and I are going to take a little pause here, which you won't know through the magic of technology, and we're going to have to get into our question, and then we'll wrap it up. And we're back, and you never noticed. We like to respond to any needs that you might have out there. If you've got something going on in your life that's bothering you or you're having some troubles, please drop us a line at that email I just mentioned, and we will be happy to address it anonymously. We will never identify you, and we will do nothing but love and support you and share our experience, strength, and hope. So, free service, ding-a-ling-ling, drop us a line. All right. Great question, short and sweet. I have heard that you are not supposed to diagnose or accuse an alcoholic if you think they are drinking. So could you please expound on this idea? I really appreciate the both of you and all your efforts with the podcast. Thank you. Appreciate that. Glad you were listening. All right, so originally there's a quote in the AA Big Book that says, we do not like to diagnose anyone as alcoholic. It does not say we don't diagnose anybody that's not alcoholic or is alcoholic. And that's where people go wrong. They think, oh, I'm not supposed to say that I think you're an alcoholic. I'm not supposed to say that I think you're an addict. It doesn't say that. It says we just don't like to have to do it. And who does? Because what happens when you accuse an alcoholic of being an alcoholic? Are you going to get a friendly response, Dan?
Nope.
You're going to get fire.
You're going to get
You're going
resistance.
to get fists sometimes.
Yep.
So we don't like that. We don't like having to confront somebody and deal with their bullshit because they're going to lie anyway and deny it. So I think words are important in semantics, and I think God had Bill Wilson's hand to have him phrase things just right. And you have to look at the details, just like in a lawyer contract. If people in the program are going to hold me to the book, I'm going to be like, I'll hold you to that book. I know the words and the dots and the periods and commas. And it says we do not like to diagnose. So I'm going to assume that's the same as you. This is probably a relative you're dealing with, and you don't want to have to deal with this crap. However, if everyone signs off that the elephant is not in the room, people die. Can you live with that? I had a sponsor that always taught me, Christopher, when you're working with newcomers or you're working with anybody else, you have to be responsible for your actions because they can die on you. And if they die, can you live with that guilt if you felt like I should have said something, I should have done something, and I was too chicken shit, or I just felt like the book told me I'm not supposed to say anything. So I believe, being my long experience dealing with crazies coming in my place every day, I get fresh fish every day, guys. It's a zoo. And I've learned it's all in the approach, your tone of voice, whether you're trying to be helpful, which Bill says we always try to be helpful and friendly. We're not trying to accuse. We're not trying to nail you. I think a lot of families go wrong on that. It's like, oh, I got you. I found your bottle. And they start yelling at you. That's going nowhere. The guy's going to double down. Just like some people might double down about getting nuclear weapons at this point. It's funny. Human nature, man. You're not going to slap me and I'm not going to slap you back. You're out of your mind. So I think if you just pray on it, talk to your sponsor, get some feedback. Do not do it alone. We always do 12-step work in pairs, but not meaning you have to necessarily have someone there at that moment, but you need to consult. Definitely consult with your sources. And as you get the same general feedback, that'll be a higher power speaking through saying this is the right tactic. I mean, literally, that's the consensus of the God consciousness in meetings. We try to get everybody's opinion, and eventually we go, oh, we're all hearing the same thing. In most people who are talking, that must be God saying this is the right path to proceed. But I don't think you should let someone you love go without knowing you don't support them getting sicker. I heard someone talking about this on a podcast just yesterday about you need to let them know. I will do. Who was it? It was actually a famous celebrity talking about their child, and they were saying, it was killing me because I already know the solution and I know how to get well, but I can't. She or he, whatever it was not hearing me, and I can't do it for him. So it says, but I also got to acknowledge that I can't keep co-signing because I know it's wrong and it's going to kill you. So they had to come up with this thing that they told him, which I agree 100%. I've said the same basically myself, is that I'm going to support anything you need to get well. The second you need anything to go to a treatment center or you get whatever you want, I am going to be right there for you, and I'll give you every resource you need to get well. I am not going to support you being sick. I am not going to support you dying. Now, you can crucify me for that. I'm adding this in my own words. Go ahead. Yell at me. Get a resentment against me. Drink at me. Be mad at me all you need to, but I need you to hear what I just said. I am not going to support you dying. And that's because I love you. I'm your friend. I'm your father. I'm the person that loves you, whatever it is. But make sure they get that message of love. I care. And I'm telling you that because I don't want you off on your own with your bottle saying, well, nobody cares. I'm just going to kill myself. That's a lie. I care enough to tell you the truth. I'm not going to let you get sick on my watch. But if you want to, do what you got to do. But I ain't going to pay for it. And that's what this guy basically said to his own child. I ain't paying for it. And that saved their life in the long run. So I know when you have a relative and actually know this person, it's so difficult. And you want it for them so bad. And I've heard this person say that, I want it for them so bad. And boy, is it frustrating. But my friend Dan has direct experience with this with his daughter. So I'll let you jump in here and give your 2 cents.
I thought you might have been listening to some famous dude named Dan Reeves on the internet.
Yeah, I listen to that dude all the time. He is very famous. I can barely get an audience with him. He doesn't take my polos. The guy's so famous now.
And earlier I said, sometimes I don't know where I pulled what, because I brainwashed myself with recovery audio and stuff, and it's in my brain, and it helped me. It's just like learning anything else. If you immerse yourself in it, it gets in there, and I will pull it out of someplace and not know where it came from and take credit for it, thinking I thought of it. But that's exactly the same thing. I'll do anything to help you. I will do anything to help you get better. I will help you. I will do anything to help you get well. I am not going to do anything to help you stay sick. Not a single thing. And I love you, and that's why. And I can say it. I'm a product of 12-step recovery. I see this. Christopher and I show up here for you every week to beat this drum and talk about what this does. And I've got my very own blood and sweat and tears in my daughter, and trying to convey that same thing to her without, running her off to, because you can. They'll run off on you. They'll disappear. And it's very touchy, very delicate situation to talk about. And I think she actually heard me. I do. The story ain't written yet and never is, right? But, I do have some personal. It is a tough thing.
Though, right?
Oh, yeah, you got to be, because, again, and I know it's not the same thing like you said. No, it is the same thing. But, so like the same kind of energy of like, well, nobody told me. Nobody was saying, and my alcoholism was like that for a long time. Nobody said anything really. I had a couple little tips, and you get a DUI, but everybody gets a DUI, don't they?
Not me. I never have one.
I know, but you know what I mean. How you are as an addict, alcoholic.
I should have several.
And everybody was just, that Dan have a good time. He don't have a problem, and nobody really. And I'm not blaming anybody on that. I'm not that, but nobody ever really said, "Hey, man, you might want to take a look at this." And the other thing is are they willing? Because that's the other dynamic here. If people don't want any help, but that statement you said, you can actually pull that out regardless or whatever, and another thing, what can you live with? What can your conscience, if that person does go out and die tomorrow and you didn't say what you thought you should have said today, you at least didn't put your cards on the table. Is that going to be okay with you, or are you going to ride off for a while to go, man, I wished I'd have said something.
Yeah.
And I thought you were going to talk about words, because the words in there, my favorite thing is when somebody brings this up, I will ask, would you like to talk about it? Are you willing to talk about it? Because I don't want to push anything on you. And if they want to talk about it, I talk about the things that it says in that book. And the 2 things that I like to talk about is that, have you tried to stop and you couldn't? Have you ever tried to stop and you couldn't do it? And, we know the answer to that most of the time. And when you start using or drinking, when you start this behavior, do you tend to do more of it than you intended to do? You end up drinking more than you intended to drink. You end up using more than you intended. You end up on the porn longer than you meant to be, or more days in succession. If that's your issue, not to say that's necessarily an issue, but if that is your issue, and the word that I'm getting at it says that hey, the literature I have says that if those 2 things are true for you, you are probably have this problem. Probably.
Probably. Yeah.
Not you do. Because they're not going to diagnose it. And I'll just, I heard Scott Lee say that on tapes in the past, exactly what you said, this thing, because he likes to drive into that book and talk about stuff that the words mean something. And he says, it doesn't say we don't diagnose anybody. He says, we don't like to. I don't like to. But sometimes when Joe is a problem and he is in and out of rehab and stuff, you got to hit Joe up and say, Joe, look, we don't like to do this, but I'm going to tell you, brother, you got a problem, man, and we can do something about it if you want to. And I've heard that on tapes, and then I was down there in Nashville a couple of weeks ago and we were reading the very chapter that's in. And I got to hear Scott scoot his chair back and hold court and deliver that face to face right in front of the group, I was like, yeah, chill. Tingles, big smile on my face the whole time.
Well, the healing place, the men's shelter here in town, says you might be the only speed bump they get before their life goes off the cliff. So you're doing them a service, but if it's not received well, it just is what it is. But you spoke your piece, and you've got to be able to live with that. You got to be able to live with what you did or didn't do. So I want to go back to the original advice. Talk to your sponsor. Build a script. You can always go over with your sponsor. What's the right thing to say? I want to say this. Should I say this? Probably not. Should I say that? Okay, that sounds all right. And then it's easy. You just go in there like an amends and go, and then they take it or leave it. Don't expect it to change, like move mountains, but you had your say, and now let them go ponder on it. They need room to ponder on it.
Yep. Lay it at their feet and back off. Keep loving them.
Yeah, but it's a great question. There's so many people out there suffering with a loved one with this disease. Just know that it's okay to feel like you want to punch the shit out of them every now and then. I got your back. It's a normal response. I deal with that every day in my group. They're so frustrated and they're so sick. Unbelievably sick. And their brain is half gone. Remember that, too. They're doing drugs that are killing their brain. So that's going to wrap it up for us today. We're really happy you joined with us. And if you would like to come back, please do. We'd love to have you. We'd like to close with the Serenity Prayer. So, Dan, would you like to join me? All righty. And the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference just for today. Keep coming back. It works if you work it. You die if you don't. Woo-hoo! Come back and see us. We love you and have a great week. Peace out.